I think the UK is the last great power who hasn't had some kind of significant movement on this issue. And I think that would be a dramatic shift. That would be sort of the end of the denial game.
To describe anything to do with genocide as a game almost doesn't seem right. But to Armenians in the UK, the genocide of their people appears to be nothing but a game to the UK government. In this podcast, we'll investigate why the Armenian Genocide hasn't yet been recognised by the United Kingdom. I'm Talin Aslanian.
Turkey tries to hide! Turkey tries to hide! 1915 genocide! 1915 genocide!
The Armenian Genocide of 1915 to 17 resulted in the killing of 1.5 million Armenians at the hands of the Ottoman Turks.
One of the main acts in the genocide was the forced deportation, typically of elderly people, women, and children, because most Armenian men and boys above the age 12 were typically killed at the very beginning of the genocide before being deported.
This is Jennifer Dixion, Associate Professor of Political Science at Villanova University.
And along these deportation marches, many were killed. Women and girls were raped and kidnapped. Many died of starvation. And then those who survived at the end of the deportation marches then were killed in later massacres in 1916.
The reason why Armenians were targeted is principally due to their Christian faith. Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire at the time were largely better off in many ways than their Turkish neighbours, and resentment of this led to the Young Turk Party to portray Armenians as a threat to the state. So, from April 24, 1915, several hundred Armenian intellectuals were rounded up, arrested and later executed as the start of the Armenian Genocide. 32 countries, including Germany, France, and the United States, have passed law to recognise the Armenian Genocide. In the UK, this hasn't happened, and this has real consequences globally because, as such an influential power, recognition from the UK would put pressure on Turkey, who also doesn't recognise the genocide. No one knows how Turkey would potentially respond if the UK took this step, but what's known is that whilst the UK doesn't confront the issue, Turkey won't feel any pressure to recognise the genocide either. In the UK, there's around 20,000 Armenians who are still seeking justice on the issue. But why does this matter? I spoke to chairman of the campaign to recognise the Armenian Genocide in the UK, Raffi Sarkissian, to get more of an understanding.
A government's responsibility is to look after the interest of people in general, and to be on the side of the truth and to avoid denying reality. Because if a government denies the reality, then they could be denying other realities as well. In some cases, therefore, it implies that we are taught or given information or decisions that are not actually right.
We'll hear more from Raffi later. So this lack of recognition is reducing the faith and trust the Armenian community has in the government. But another impact, which the Armenian case highlights, is of how turning a blind eye to an atrocity can lead to another one. Adolf Hitler himself said in 1939, "Who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians?" It's scary to think that ignoring an atrocity can be taken advantage of to create more tragedy. But how does the UK not recognising the Armenian Genocide affect the local community? I've been speaking to some British Armenians. They didn't want their names to be used, but they express a real strength of feeling about the genocide.
For me, it's so difficult to say that I live in a country that 105 years on doesn't recognise the tragedy of the Armenian people. The UK government has decided to prioritise having a good relationship with Turkey. It's all political. The day that the UK government recognises the Armenian genocide will be a proud day for me. Finally, the 1.5 million Armenians we lost will be recognised, and Turkey will be forced to come to terms with their actions.
I think if the Armenian Genocide was recognised finally by the UK government, it would feel like a weight lifted off my shoulders. From a very young age, you're raised with this knowledge, you're taught about it, but obviously as a child, also learning that Turkey denies it and governments aren't acknowledging it, particularly the country that you live in, it's pretty heartbreaking. And it makes you sort of see the world differently from a very young age, that there isn't justice for bad things, especially something as horrendous and horrific as the Armenian Genocide. I love being part of a community that is so passionate about being Armenian. But on the other side of it, I think it has its limitations. Because we are so stuck in the past, we can't grow.
Every year, the main Armenian campaign group lobby the government to change the law. The regular response from the government is that they acknowledge the strength of feeling about this event and recognise the events of 1915 as a tragedy, but don't use the word genocide. The UK government choose to not get involved and say that this is an issue that Armenia and Turkey need to address together. Recognition by the UK would have a big impact on how the genocide is perceived by Turkey and the world, and that's why Armenians in the UK are still campaigning for their justice. But there's a lot holding them back, and as Raffi Sarkissian is going to explain, one large factor is money.
We tried to, this is during the centenary year 2015, we met with a PR company and talked about the possibility of running a campaign over the year. They came back to us with two quotations. The cheaper quotations was roughly about $500,000 for the year, and the more, let's say, costly one or more comprehensive one, which had quite an extensive type of journalism and campaigns running, was over £1 million. And that kind of funding with our community here is almost an impossibility. To get funding for a cause that is pursuing recognition of genocide, and everyone knows that it's not going to happen easily because of the historical close ties between Turkey and UK, then everyone thinks twice before committing the money.
But as touched on there by Raffi, the largest factor preventing influence is politics.
We know that the UK will be the most sensitive country for recognition based on the fact that their foreign policy is very closely tied with Turkey. And that has been the case prior to the genocide and since then, and it has strengthened over the time. There's a huge amount of business interest and investments in Turkey from England or UK that matters. And as a result, they wouldn't want to shake the boat as such.
And President of the International Association of Genocide Scholars, Henry Theriault, points out that the UK may also be worried about dredging up their own past through recognition.
And the reality is, if you're looking at the US, you're looking at the UK, you're looking at France, you're looking at other countries, we all have our historical justice issues. And so if we start endorsing border changes, if we start endorsing massive reparations packages, the next step in the U.S. is reparations for slavery. It's enforcing treaties with Native American groups who have very legitimate land claims that honestly are still legal. And I think that's where you start to get into governments not wanting to get involved with this issue directly.
It's grassroots campaigning that's kept this topic alive in the UK for so long. But this has been a long campaign with little change year on year, and not all British Armenians have the same energy left to challenge the government. I spoke to some of these Armenians, who'll remain nameless, to find out where they stand.
I understand it's something that has to be recognised, being able to move on and, generally to help improve humanity as well, but disenfranchised by it. It's used so much as a political tool.
If the UK government recognised the Armenian genocide, it would not have an impact on me. It would be a momentary sort of happiness, but all in all, I'd be more concerned about the future, of how we can improve the future reputation of Armenia.
And with the future in mind, what's next for this community and campaign? Could the UK one day recognise the Armenian genocide? Well, after the US Congress recognised the Armenian Genocide in the autumn of 2019, Raffi says British Armenians shouldn't lose hope.
So if America came to a point in time, in history, in current political affairs, that would be a step that would teach Turkey a lesson, and they took that step, it indicates clearly that there also may be a circumstance or situation in the UK that would lead the government to take that step. And the important thing is to be ready for that, because if we didn't campaign, if we didn't push them, then they could easily forget it.
What we care more is the recognition by the Turkish government, right?
This is Harout Chirinian, Head of Communications and PR at the European Armenian Federation for Justice and Democracy.
So if the recognition of the Armenian genocide by the UK will help to reach another step and to go forward and to put more pressure on the Turkish government, we will actually use that and do that.
So whilst it doesn't seem right to describe anything to do with genocide as a game, it does seem that the British Armenian community has quite the battle on their hands, but they could be the ones to make the biggest impact on this issue globally.